Welcome everyone, my name is Renegade Operative and I'm making a first impressions video of the game of the year, Knack II for life baby! But seriously, Knack II I acquired through some very hilarious means because if you don't remember, the PlayStation Store and Sony had a little bit of a blunder. They managed to put Knack II up early in the New Zealand store, so I decided to make a New Zealand account, download this bad boy for free, and try it out and give you a first impressions on the overall game structure itself. Keep in mind, I have not completed Knack II. These are first impressions. They are not a review. I will put a time card right here so you will be able to see how long I've been playing Knack II. This will give you a rough estimate because we're going to talk about chapters in a bit. However, let's start off with the first bullet point here. Diverse environments and variety segments added to Knack II. So in Knack II, you will be mostly doing things like platforming or other elements like combat. You can also get in a tank and blow your enemies to kingdom come. It's a wide variety of stuff to do alongside puzzle solving, and I think this is one of the strong suits of the game. It doesn't feel like the first Knack where things get overly repetitive immediately. There is hints of repetition, but that does not cut away the fact that Knack is a well-designed game, and it really shows in the sequel. I enjoyed the combat a lot, even though it gets a little bit stale. I really enjoyed the environments and I enjoyed the music. It has this bombastic feel when you play the first level, like you're preparing for something epic, and I really enjoyed that merit of the game. However, on the flip side of this, I will talk about the repetition. The repetition comes in the fact that Knack doesn't have a wide variety of moves. All he does is punch, slap, kick people, he does a body slam, and that's it. And this is tied to the skill tree. The skill tree is very robust, but it doesn't seem like you can level up fast enough to get your hands on all these abilities. It takes a long time just to get to level 2 on the skill tree when it comes to unlocking moves and equipment, and I really found that jarring. I'm like, I want to have powerful moves, I want to have all this stuff immediately. I know it takes a long time. It seems like it has an RPG element, but it's taking way too long to grind through these moves and get them on time. Just to give you guys some perspective of why I don't like the skill tree in Knack II. I'm on the third board now of the skill tree, and basically I'm at chapter 8. So I tried to do all the missions. I tried to do all of this content where there's like these treasures that you have to find, treasure chests, to get more XP, to make more gadgets, to get Knack more abilities. However, the problem seems to be that it takes so much XP just to unlock all these diverse movesets, and then you get to the final move that you have to learn and it costs you like 4 XP, which is very grindy. I'm assuming that maybe there's a new game plus mode or something. There has to be some reason why all these moves cost so much. The only reason I'm citing this as an issue is because it seems like Knack's moveset isn't really robust, and if throughout maybe a good chunk of the game, like 70%, you're mostly engaged in combat, then yeah, it makes it seem like your first playthrough, you really don't have much to add to the repertoire of moves until you buy them. So it seems like you have to wait until New Game Plus to really be appeased with most of the combat. It's decent at best, but there are some power-ups that tend to also repeat themselves, like Scrap Knack. Scrap Knack is the same as Iron Knack, and he wields this sort of rubbish of a whip like Castlevania around, and you can fling it around at enemies, and it's the same thing. The Stealth Knack for combat, it doesn't do much of anything. It just makes Small Knack pretty much invisible to lasers. I did enjoy the Crystal Swords, and I also enjoyed Ice Claw Knack, which reminded me a lot of Wolverine. I just wish that these power-ups would have added more variety to the game and not be so few and far between until you really needed them in the story, which honestly, the story is nothing to write home about. Knack himself, he's pretty much a bland character, I'm not gonna lie. This man lacks any charismatic values, and it really shows in his character. The other characters aren't that interesting either. It's like something's going on in the Goblin Kingdom and you have to stop them. And that's pretty much it. It's a pretty much cut and dry point A to point B storyline. The kids, man, the kids will love it though. That much I can assure, because it's not too convoluted to follow either. I will say on record, the combat does feel decent. Each fight feels challenging. It doesn't feel like it's artificial intelligence nonsense. It feels like if you die, because Knack, he takes hits and it's very visual, so each time he takes a hit, he shrinks. And it doesn't feel like it's something convoluted to follow in terms of the combat. Everything in comparison, like the Neo Alpha demo, it doesn't feel that broken when it comes to fighting in Knack. It sounds like this game had balance in mind compared to the first one, because it requires a lot of dodging and parrying to be successful, to gain an advantage. While the combat can feel repetitive, it feels so fun to use those techniques to destroy enemies, despite the fact that you really don't get a lot of moves until few and far between later in the game, which is obviously a problem for me. Knack is also not the most graphically intensive game from what I'm looking at, but they did a great job with the destructible elements and the chaos on screen and the particle effects and all that good stuff. It looks really good with the art style, and I really appreciate it. Let's talk on the topic of enemy variety. I thought the enemy variety in this game was really good. You have these high knights drenched in electricity that you have to fight, and you can't hit them outright. You have to wait for their shield to drop. You have insectoids, you have spider mechs, you have goblins, you have all these enemies that you can fight that have different attributes against Knack, and they really put in a lot of effort, but it seems like that effort lacks when it comes to the bosses themselves. You notice how when you get to the end of a segment, they really just ended off with like a sub boss or whatever. That felt disappointing. I have no idea why the developers decided to put in like 2 great boss fights and flunk the rest and say, you know what, we're not going to put a lot of bosses in this game, even though we have good mechanics to know how a boss battle works. I think there was one boss that was chasing me, and the section where you turn from Little Knack and you have the platform away from him and you have to also fight enemies along the way, I thought that was pretty cool. But the boss battles are few and non-existent, and I really don't like that fact. I think that it could have added a little bit more of a dynamic to have a boss at the end of each chapter and to have every fight feel like it's rewarding. Maybe they could have gave Knack more weapons, because I see you get certain weapons when you get these blue orbs, like the boomerang where you could trap enemies, but it doesn't happen often. I think they could have pulled the Mega Man here and have you fight an end boss and get a new ability that would have added more to the game. But unfortunately, they don't do that here. I think it seems like there's a bit of a caveat when it came to balancing out the AI, having awesome enemy design and variety in the game, but the caveat is they decided to have a lack of boss fights, which I found weird. But there's still good things in Knack. I think the set pieces are pretty cool, especially the interchanging gameplay between small and big Knack. Those elements that revolve around transformations themselves, they are really good. And I also enjoyed the platforming. The platforming is surprisingly decent. You guys know me. When it comes to platforming, it better be motherfucking precise. Otherwise, I am going to give you a critique. So when it comes to examples like Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, the first game where Crash is like slipping off ledges like he has ice cubes strapped to his shoes, then I'm going to criticize that. But Knack 2, it feels really fair. You get like a second chance too, which is pretty cool. Like if you jump off a ledge and you respawn a bit, you have a second chance before you die again and restart at the checkpoint. So there is that dynamic that sort of helps you out. Definitely, it feels like there are levels that are tailor-made to this platforming that seems to go on for a bit, but I don't mind that. Good platforming levels are good. I don't care how lengthy they are, as long as it's fun and engaging, I can get behind that. The last couple of things I want to say about Knack 2 is, it seems like the developers took notice. They looked at the first game, they saw it was too hard, they saw it was boring, and they tried to improve on this with these set pieces, with doing these new things, with doing these new fights. However, it seems like there's still problems that linger. Like, even though it's a really good thing that the game seems long, they don't have anything so far that stands out in terms of replay value. The game seems to have couch co-op, but not online co-op, so I think that is a bit of a detriment. However, despite these problems, Knack 2 might not be Game of the Year, but they certainly have something going for it that warrants at least one playthrough. It might not hook you directly, but I think this game, probably at a cheaper price of maybe 20 bucks, would be definitely a steal. It's not the worst game in the world. It's actually something that I enjoy playing, but it doesn't seem like it has a lot of meat on its bones to really stand out in terms of stuff like Neo or Yakuza Kiwami. Despite the shortcomings, it's a solid game on its own right, and I think if you're interested in platforming games, if you maybe want to wait for a $20 price drop, if you're interested in buying this game for your kids, then it's a damn good steal right there. And I don't think this game should be overlooked because the predecessor was so terrible. I think that Knack 2 outshines its predecessor in every way, and definitely keep all this stuff into account if you're interested in playing this game. I've been having some fun despite the shortcomings in my playthrough, and overall I would recommend this game to people if you get it at a lower price at $20. This is Renegade Operative signing off, and hopefully you guys really enjoyed my first impressions of Knack 2. I will see you guys next time. Later.